Okay, so we're starting now. Hey guys, I'm Eric from Founders Beta, and I'm thrilled to have Mehrad, Director of Product from Viafoura. Mehrad, thanks so much for joining today.
My pleasure.
So we're going to dive into the topic today is all about product. So we
Yes,
have, this is your thing, right?
it is.
So I'm so excited to hear about your wisdom over the years, and for our audience as well. We have many founders that are thinking about building the next, big product. Who knows, right?
Yeah,
And then also people wanting to break into product as well as a career. So let's dive in. Maybe tell us a little bit about your career path and how you got where you are today.
absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm happy that you guys are thinking about starting new, companies out there and even getting into the product. I hope that things we discuss here would be of help. Um, yeah, so in terms of a background of how I ended up here, I think, I went to University of Waterloo. I did systems design engineering there. And if any of you are thinking about, going to a university, I highly recommend, obviously, University of Waterloo. I think the co-op program there really shaped my early exposure into different uh, job titles or different aspects of variety of jobs, and it indicated to me as much as it indicated to me what I like to do. It also showed me what I don't like to do. So early on throughout the co-op experience, that I did everything from software development to quality assurance to project management, and I and yeah, it was really good learning experience. But after that, I started like 3 companies after graduating. I don't know if you guys are familiar with University of Waterloo's engineering program. Is that a 4th year you get to do a design project? So that design project, myself and a few of my classmates worked on a platform where we would provide personalized constructive feedback for physiotherapy patients, especially ones with mobility issues, so they wouldn't need to go to the physiotherapist office to get their exercises. And it was a very interesting idea. We got some industry interest there. But towards the end of that, um, we sort of wound the company down and figured out what to do with the IP that we generated. And after that, I kind of really wanted to. This is like 2013,
Right.
many years ago now. I wanted to get my hands dirty with making websites. I had no idea, and I thought it was an
Right.
important thing. And I also had a personal problem of figuring out things to do around town. And I sort of started this platform where you would be able to create personalized itineraries of things or fun things to do around town for locals, not necessarily for when you go traveling, sightseeing, and that sort of thing, but like cool restaurants and places to go to, but not just single destinations, a multi-destination, multi-step sort of evening plan sort of thing. We worked on that for a couple of years, grew the team to 10 people. We had like about 20,000 active users at some point. And, I had to, and myself and my co-founder, we had to sort of sit down and make a decision of, how much we want to spend, how much time we want to spend, and how much energy we want to spend on the company. And the path to revenue was not necessarily straightforward or
Right.
easy.
No kidding.
And I say that because no path to revenue is necessarily easy, especially at the beginning. And we had to make a decision to not necessarily continue that effort. And it was around the same time that I was approached by yet another startup called Focal Healthcare, and
Right.
they were working on medical devices. And you'd see throughout my experiences, I jump industries and
Right.
markets, widely swing between different industries and markets, which is kind of I'm happy I did that. But yeah, so that company, Focal Healthcare, I joined that company as user experience architect.
Mhm.
And the reason I did that is at the time, medical devices, their user interfaces, there was a wide gap between the quality of those interfaces, the usability of those interfaces, um, between the medical devices and any other device that doctors interact with. So that, for example, these guys are on their phones, they have like
Right.
Android,
Right.
UI, UX, iPhone UI, UX, and go on this medical device, most of their medical devices, and they have very rigid, ugly
That's
interfaces.
so true.
Yeah, and so I figured, this might be an opportunity to have an impact. So what we did actually for the medical device that we worked on was for prostate cancer diagnosis. And we really focused on simplicity of the design so that
Mhm.
the doctors pay attention on the patient and on the procedure, not necessarily on the device. And it turned out to be one of the most important. The usability, easy use of the device ended up being one of the most important selling points, which was very, very exciting. So from that UX, again, in that company startup, you get to wear multiple hats.
Right.
I did UX architect, software design, corporate strategy, and then landed in
Mhm.
product management at that company. And I think around that time it was that I realized product is what I want to do, because
Oh, wow.
I've practically did everything except marketing, um, in all the different positions.
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
okay, product is the way to go. And and then the reason I switched or moved from that medical device company to Viafoura was that I really wanted to work with data. We reached a point that I wanted to be able to look at, large amounts of data on user behavior and
Right.
be able to really measure and impact decisions, product decisions, um, using data. And it's difficult doing that with medical devices because you have,
Right.
best case scenario, a few hundred devices out there and they're not necessarily connected.
Right.
So yes, I joined Viafoura about 2.5 years ago as a product. I had a single product at the beginning, grew to 2, 3, and then I moved on to director of product, where we have responsible for all of our engagement products, data, and moderation products. And we were growing the team, so we'd be able to bring on more data analysts and data scientists there, as well as hopefully another product person that can take some of the product related um, responsibilities.
Awesome. Wow, what a quite a journey, eh? Like you had your own startup and launched products and yeah, maybe tell us about what exactly like your day to day looks like. In terms of working on the product side and new products that you talked about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like majority of the days and of the responsibilities sort of break down into, I want to say, like three major categories.
Mhm.
One is product development, like figuring out product delivery side, like how do we nitty gritty, like features and functionalities, resources needed to develop those products,
Right.
and understanding and communicating the features and new product developments to the development team and the engineers who are going to implement it. That's a big chunk.
Right.
Um, and the other chunk is interacting with clients. So, it's as part of a product manager's responsibility. It's very important to really understand the problems that you're trying to solve, and you can only do that by interacting with clients and users all the time. So that's a problem discovery phase.
Right.
So doing a lot of that, like having a lot of interactions, a lot of conversations with a lot of the clients, users, is, I think, probably the most important part of any product manager's job. And I tend to spend a lot of time thinking about that too, and spending a lot of time doing that as well. And then the third biggest thing essentially is like longer term strategy planning,
Mhm.
road mapping, figuring out where we want to go, market analysis, and longer term, again, planning around which industries we want to tap into next, which markets we want to go after,
Right.
and doing a proper value proposition canvases and business model canvases and going into new ventures would be probably like another 10% of how my time is spent. But yeah, I would definitely summarize that in these three major buckets. I think like 70%, 60% is product, 35% is clients. I think it's very important.
Right.
That 5% you get to think about strategize into the future.
Nice. So we have a lot of people that want to get into product, like we have many aspiring future product managers, right? So
yeah.
So what sort of tips do you recommend, like in terms of like just getting into the field? Is it good idea to maybe build something on your own, try to figure it out, or any traditional, maybe paths, or what are your thoughts on that?
That's probably one of the most commonly asked questions on how to get into product, which tells you that the path is not clear.
Right.
Which is actually reflective of reality, because there are many ways where you can get into product. You have product managers who are client success, product managers who are software, who are like traditional product managers or product marketers. But that's the truth, and the reason is the product management is essentially a node where you interact with a lot of stakeholders. So if you have a lot of experience interacting with any of those stakeholders, you have some subset of the skill sets that makes you suitable for a product management position. So in general, to answer that question, I usually say, there's three important aspects of any product manager's set of skills. One is their really knowledge of the industry. If they really know, the ins and outs of the industry, they have connections. The second one is, you need to know your company. You need to know the history of your company. If you're working at a company, that's really valuable for product managers to know the history, where they come from, what's important, and on dynamics of interactions between different departments is highly valuable.
Right.
And third one is you need to know the methodologies of product management. So, basics, principles, things you read in textbooks. So if you want to get into product, you need to have at least one. If you want to have three, that's great, but you need to have at least one. So that means, you're a good candidate to go into a product position within your industry at a different company. So that's a move that is very possible and people do it. But a more likely move is when you do that within your own company. And that's how I ended up into product is, the company, the industry, and you talk to the product people within the company if you are there, and see, if they're hiring. Product managers are best hired internally, in my opinion.
True. So true.
And then if neither of those two are feasible, then you get to make sure you understand the principles, the methodologies, you study up, so how to solve problems, at least in theory.
Right.
And once you're actually faced with the challenges, so you have at least a toolbox that you can open up and use the right tool sets for different challenges.
Right. That's
so
awesome.
The question that you ask, Eric, on starting your own thing to be able to move into product, I think is a very valid way of doing it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't use it as a means of getting into product. I think that's a very difficult undertaking.
True.
Starting a company and being successful, I think it's much easier ways of getting into the product and into the product.
Yeah, because I think building a startup is so brutal, right?
Yeah, it's very difficult, and we all know that.
It's just, especially your bootstrapping, like especially you're trying to make it happen, but also keep things together. Absolutely brutal. Yeah, those are great points. Yeah. Great. So how about let's move on. Next questions we have. We're talking about building products. What kind of tips do you have for validation? Like you probably you build so many MVPs. You build your own startup. Like, what tips do you have in terms of validating and kind of building good products?
Yeah. I mean, like that's the cornerstone. That's the $1 million question, essentially.
Right.
How do you do it right? So I think the most important part, in my view, is that um, you need to really understand what the problem is. So I usually break that down into problem discovery. I think
Mm.
that's the most
Right.
important part,
Right. Right.
is to really understand what the issue is, and that's sometimes more difficult. It sort of makes sense. You ask somebody, well, what's the problem, and they tell you,
Right.
but in reality, that's never the case. You need to really understand what the underlying issue is, and being organized on the problem discovery side, it's going to um, make everything else a lot easier,
Right. Right.
all the way to the product market fit. So, if you understand the problems, you ask the 5 why question to understand the root cause of
Right.
the issues. Then you realize that there is going to be a common root cause problem for majority of problems that you are trying to solve for your clients or users.
Mhm.
So doing that is very important. Now, after that, things are a bit more, straightforward. You have a root cause problem that you want to
Right.
solve, then you build hypotheses around it, right? So, and the hypotheses and the MVP, it could be a functional prototype with like, click-throughs and data that shows up,
Right.
but it
Right.
could be anything else, like, a research paper that you got to read, market analysis that you got to do. That's all of those are, ways for you to validate your hypothesis. If you have a hypothesis that is necessarily, very difficult to prove by building products and testing, go any other means of validating the product. In my view, an MVP is anything that validates your hypothesis. So you have a
Wow.
problem, you build a hypothesis around it saying, we think this is a problem, and we think, to solve it, we need to do this. Do that thing, find ways to do that thing, and measure if it solves the problem. That's your MVP. So that validation, again, is super important, and you got to do it every step of the way.
Right.
I know sometimes, especially when working with output driven companies, um, they go like, okay, how long is it going to take? Why don't you just build the feature and ship it?
Right.
But it's important for you to realize that it's a lot more expensive to solve a problem that nobody cares about,
Right.
than spending a bit of time and solving the right problem.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good point about MVP, because I think people tend to get, even I've been to the same shoes as well. You get so fancy. You build all these features, and
Yeah.
it ends up being such a bloated like first MVP, right? So, but I think yeah, MVP, like as you said, I think anything that helps validate the hypothesis, I think is a great starting point
Yeah.
before actually spending a lot of time and money, right? Because I mean, I've been there too. We spend 8 months building something nobody wants, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's a really good, great pointers for our audience. Yeah, moving on to the next question. So like, what do you think makes a really good MVP? Like,
Yeah.
like, is it just you know, the features? Is it just more on the problem side? What do you think?
I think a great MVP is something that is very, very clear. It is very clear and concise
Right.
on the exact hypothesis that you want to test. I
Mm-hmm.
know sometimes it's difficult, and you end up not knowing which hypothesis you're testing through your MVP.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going, let's say, with a solution where you need to build a functional prototype to get usability feedback, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or get like sort of market feedback from those ideas. There are like different categories of features and functionality that you need to include, in an MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are things like must-haves. Some of them are things that improve performance for your users.
Mm-hmm.
And the third category would be delighters, right? It's shaped like a pyramid, where the must-haves are probably a lot of functionality. I need to
Right.
have login. I need to have password reset. All that stuff.
Right.
And the optimization layer is things like, I I need to filter, search, and that sort of thing. And then the delighters are things that are unique to your product, right? What people do and the mistakes that some people make is that they go about and do 90% of the must-haves,
Right.
and then go about and do 10% of the performance improvements and none of the delighters. I think a good example of an MVP in that traditional sense is that you do sliver of the entire pyramid. So you do 10, 20% of your must-haves. Let's say if you want to do login, you don't need password reset, you don't need none of that. You make one fake account and give it to someone.
Right.
So none of your account management must-haves are there, right? So you focus on very basic, 10, 20% of your must-haves, and then put 10%, 20% of your performance improvements, and make sure you put like half of your delighters there, because those delighters are things that are really separates you and sets you apart, are the things you want to focus on. And the rest of the must-haves are solved problems.
Right.
They're not hypotheses that you need to verify. Yes, if you have an account, if you have a login system, you need to have a password reset. There's no unknown there. So you don't want your MVP to spend time and energy verifying that, right?
Right.
So that's what I would say. But I think, again, like to the previous point,
Mhm.
anything that verifies your hypothesis is in my view an
Right.
MVP. It could be like a simple, you know, um, again, like a landing page, demand gen.
Right.
That's an MVP to
Yeah.
verify that. It could be a button that is not hooked up to anything. When somebody clicks on it and says, "Thank you, we get your
Right.
feedback, we'll work
Right,
on it,"
exactly.
right?
Right, right. Yeah, those are great, especially with landing pages. I think it's a good way to kind of get a sense of the interest too,
Yeah.
before spending more time and resources as well. So great. What are some of your favorite products? Like, what do you really like? Like, what do you think, like, in terms of like what makes it like a really usable product? Is it the ease of use? Is it what is it?
Right. So that's a very interesting question. And to me, and again, I'm a product person, so I'm a bit more forgiving when it comes to things like usability issues or
Mm-hmm.
confusing interfaces and that sort of thing. And what I do care about more about the product is the idea behind it, is the objective of the
Right.
product and things that it's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the usability issues are very important and things that needs to be done. But we all know when you have a backlog of hundreds of items that you need to
Right.
look at,
Right.
and I like to put myself in the product manager's shoes of that product and say, okay, I know and I hope
Right.
you're working on this,
Right. Right. Right.
but I'm gonna enjoy the product because it has a good cost. So like one of my favorite apps that I use probably
Mm-hmm.
more often, more commonly than anything else, is this app. I don't know if you've heard of Flash Food.
Flash food.
It
Right. Right.
Yeah, I really enjoy that app. It's like it's a
Right.
very simple
Mm-hmm.
m- but well-made app that speaks directly to the objective of reducing waste and
Right.
reducing carbon emissions.
Right.
And even if they have like a stat and also saving money, which is like, again, it's such a unique, it's such a great way of showing that you don't need to, one is not opposite the other. You can be environmentally conscious and save money.
Right.
And
Right.
the app is entirely around that, which I think it's really valuable in terms of
Interesting.
the objectives and sort of the message that it tries to get across. In terms of usability, obviously there are things that I would like to be
Right.
able to do that it's not there, but I understand that
Right.
that's a workable thing.
Right. Yeah, that's actually great because
Yeah,
I think they're a Toronto startup company, right? I think
yeah,
yeah, that's a great shout out. So
yeah. That's right.
yeah, yeah.
I'm a big fan, and I tell
Right.
you, like, I
Yeah.
don't have many of the social media apps on my phone.
Oh, that's good.
So I do check
Right.
them as frequently as I used to check like
Right.
Instagram
Mm-hmm.
a
Yeah.
couple of years ago.
Right. Oh,
So
yeah,
I
yeah,
really
yeah.
enjoy that app.
That's great. Yeah, so great shout out to Flash Food out there. So awesome. So let's talk about like stuff about off work. Like how do you stay motivated?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, all the
That's
all that hard stuff. Day in, day out. Like
right. It definitely, there are points where, things do get frustrating, and with the pandemic that we're dealing with the work from home, and the
right,
reason I'm wearing a cap is because I haven't had a haircut in such a
right,
long
yeah,
time.
right, right.
Is things do become challenging, and this lack of face-to-face interaction, at
Hmm.
first it was something interesting to live through, but I think at this point, we are realizing the deficiencies, so like that goes with an online teams for us,
Right, right, for sure.
and there's a lot of things that get lost without having people to interact with one another in person. So yes, things do get a bit frustrating. I think what motivates me personally
Mhm.
is is thinking about the objectives and things that are important to us. Like, for example, for me, I'm a big fan of preventing misinformation and disinformation, and what, like, the true fake news.
Right,
um, and I am uniquely positioned to be able to have an impact there, to make sure that our decisions, our perspective on things as a population, especially Canadian population, are not influenced by incorrect and inaccurate
right.
statements and information out there. And this is something that we do, and we take great pride in, is that we were allowing for, at Viafoura, we allow for building online communities
Hmm.
where we are on many of the Canadian publisher and news sites like
Right.
CBC, Sportsnet,
Amazing.
National Post, Toronto Star, but yet we make sure that our decisions as a population in Canada are not influenced by inaccuracies and incorrect information. I think at the core of all issues
Hmm.
is uninformed decisions,
Right,
and be able to, like, really, it goes all the way back to the stuff that I was talking about, problem discovery, and then getting to
right.
the root cause. I think the root cause of all of our issues is that we are misinformed,
So
especially
true.
on things that are science backed, that are data
Right,
driven.
right,
There should be no debate on facts.
right.
I think there should be debates on what we want to do about it, but at the point that you're debating or questioning, or facts that are proven and backed by many scientists, I think is when the logic is going to fall apart, and from there everything else, there's going to be inaction towards climate change. There's going to be
Right.
people who are not going to take a pandemic seriously and spread the disease. So many of our current issues, I
Right.
think it
Oh,
goes
so
back
many,
to
so many. Yeah.
lack of a clear understanding of the problem, and being able to really accept the basics and then go from there.
Right, right.
So I think in summary, in short, is
Yeah.
to stay motivated is keep that goal in mind. Keep,
Mhm.
do something that you like to do, that is important to you. Keep that in mind, and that is going to keep you motivated. And if it's not, you got to pick a new thing.
Right, right, for sure. Wow, that's great. So I always ask the guests on Founders Beta to talk about what's the best advice you ever gotten, or
Yeah.
would you give out like best advice? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the best advice, and this is something that I have personally experienced, and I truly think it is true and accurate, is that if you really want something really bad,
Hmm.
it happens. So don't get discouraged. Realize that achieving an objective requires practice and requires time, and repetition, and failure is it's rite of passage. You gotta,
Hmm.
don't let that discourage you from getting to what you want. Focus on it, really really focus on it, and just take one step towards it at a time. And I think even if you're doing this and there's obstacles on the way, eventually you'll get to that objective. And nothing big has been achieved easily.
Right.
Anything big requires a lot of dedication, and there's a lot of failures on the paths of any success story that you hear out there. So just
Right.
keep going, and it'll all be fine.
Right. Right. No overnight success, right?
There's no such a thing
Right.
unless it's a massive inheritance or
Right.
you won the lottery or something.
Right.
But
Right.
even
So,
then,
right. Who knows? That's great. So, yeah, for our audience that want to learn about, your company and connect with you, where can they go?
LinkedIn, look for my name,
Yeah.
and on our site, Viafoura.com
So,
is a place that you can learn about what we do. And again, if you use probably any of the Canadian news sites, you
mhm,
probably have come across our tools. We engage the community tools, so the commenting, authentication, trade notification, news feed, chat, live blog, and
right.
all these products that are all backed by intelligent automated moderation system, as well as a team of individual manual moderators that look at additional fact checking and additional layer of eyes on top of the submitted comment to ensure civility. So on the sites that we're in, as I mentioned, CBC,
Right.
Sportsnet, Toronto Star, National Post, many of the Canadian sites we are on, that you can go and use our tools,
Mhm.
and our website and my LinkedIn are the best place to reach out to me.
Awesome. Great. Well, Mehrad, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on Founders Beta, connect with our audience, and well, we really appreciate your time and coming back, giving back to the community, and sharing some of your expertise. Yeah, and we hope to see you again on Founders Beta anytime. So, and for our audience, check out the links we're gonna put up and connect, ask questions, and yeah, we'll see you guys later. So
Awesome. Just one thing I want to add, Eric. I
sure.
think what you guys are doing and the community that you're building around Founders Beta and the couple of events that Viafoura has been part of on the virtual job fairs. You guys are on track, and this is a
Awesome.
great work. And I'm excited to see your community also grow. And you're doing a great job as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mehrad, for the time today, and thanks again. It's been a blast chatting with you.